considerably younger than Ludwig. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the exchange which takes place between them at the beginning of the opera. Ludwig. Pretty Lisa, fair and tasty, tell me now and tell me truly, haven't you been rather hasty? Haven't you been rash unduly? To which Lisa replies very demurely, when you tell me your perfection, tender, truthful, true and comely, that in quarrel no one's better, though dissensions always grieve you, why, my love, you're so much older, that of course I must believe you. That, I promise, will not be the last quotation from Gilbert and Sullivan today. You might well be asking yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, what am I doing up here, ruining what might otherwise have been a wonderful show, I'm sorry, wedding. Why me? I ask myself the same question. I am, of course, accustomed to public speaking. But not, ladies and gentlemen, at weddings. Very few of my friends ever seem to get married. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, I think the last time I was invited to a wedding, it was that of my late parents. I hasten to add, I graciously declined the invitation. Then I thought, after a period of reflection, that perhaps, of all the people present here today, I'm as qualified as anyone to speak on behalf of the bride as an old friend of her family. Indeed, I feel I've known the groom so long that I've become an old friend of his family as well. But I do, ladies and gentlemen, have the unique distinction of being, I think, the only person who has actually lived at one time or another, separately, with both the bride and the groom. Linda, ladies and gentlemen, shared my very modest abode for some 18 months way back in the late 1970s. 10 years later, Edwin came knocking on my door and asking whether I had lodgings for a month. He remained for a year. I have no complaints, of course. They were both impeccable tenants. They got on extremely well with my live-in partner. They made all the right noises about my dear departed four-legged friends Gilbert and Tosca. And what's more important, they paid the rent on time. It was, of course, a very modest rent. The sort of thing Pooh Bah would have considered to be an insult. But I did, in fact, have one complaint which I could level against Edwin. And that was the fact that, to my enormous irritation, he used to monopolize my fridge with his salads and health foods. I've never really understood why anyone should go to so much trouble to eat raw carrots and apples if they then washed the stuff down with 2 liters of Burgundy. More precisely, in his case, whiskey on the rocks. But of course, the Barker Joneses and the Beaumonts go back a lot further than 1979. There is a sort of generation gap, if I may be permitted to say so, for you must appreciate, ladies and gentlemen, my father and Linda's mother shared more than a passing interest in the artistic triumphs of their offspring.
I see, we didn't hear it.
Dame Rumour whispered, ladies and gentlemen, that they formed a sort of mutual admiration society. In my imagination, or were Marion and Barker Jones Sr. stepping out together, conducting a sort of discreet but courtly romance, rather like Sir Marmaduke Poindexter and Lady Sangazure in The Sorcerer. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we shall never know. Because had my father been interested in Marion, she kept him waiting. She kept him waiting, ladies and gentlemen, so long that in the end, he just died of old age. I was beginning to worry, ladies and gentlemen, that the same fate might befall Edwin. Or that if they ever got married, the wedding would have been followed by a reception in an old people's nursing home. So what, ladies and gentlemen, is on the tips of all of our tongues? What does Linda see in Ed? think perhaps we need look no further than the words of W.S. Gilbert for a clue as to what she sees in him. These are words which Linda sang in the role of Constance, the village pew opener's daughter, barely a few months before she met Gibson. Were these words, ladies and gentlemen, to be prophetic? This is what she sang. I shall say it, of course. I know not why I love him so. It is enchantment, surely. He's dry and snuffy, deaf and slow, ill-tempered, weak and poorly. He's ugly and absurdly dressed, and 67 nearly. He's everything that I detest, but if the truth must be confessed, I love him very dearly. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Gibson, as they now are, met in 1984 when Linda was directing a production of The Pirates of Penzance. I do recall that there was very stiff competition at the auditions for the role of the tenor lead, that of Frederick, a 21-year-old heartthrob. In spite, ladies and gentlemen, of the stiff competition, Linda did award the role of Frederick to Ed, a role he played, ladies and gentlemen, in the words of those venerable old ladies, Hinge and Brackett, without the aid of makeup, but with the very skillful use of lighting. Not to mention, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time, a toupee. A very great shame, ladies and gentlemen, that Linda was directing the show and not taking the role of Mabel, because had she taken the role of Mabel, it would have given her her first opportunity to appear on stage with Edwin, holding hands, and she would have sung as follows. Oh, here is love, and here is truth, and here is room for joyous laughter. We will be faithful to our sooth till we are wed, and even after. As it was, she left Ed with another Mabel, reflecting on stage, in 1990, I of age shall be, I'll then return and claim you, I declare it. To which she replies, Mabel, it seems so long. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been long. It wasn't very long before they had an opportunity to appear on stage together. That very same year, they appeared on stage together in Patience. Linda as the lovesick maiden, Lady Saphir, and he is the aristocratic, the Duke of Dunstable, or as he preferred to call him, the Duke of Dunstable. And in the final number from that opera, we hear Edwin singing on stage, if Saphir I choose to marry, I shall be fixed up for life. Ladies and gentlemen, the long, long public romance had begun. Or, as Shadbolt said in The Yeoman of the Guard, Lord, how they wooed. Within 12 months, ladies and gentlemen, have I skipped a page there?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, no. Within 12 months, ladies and gentlemen, Linda appeared on stage in the same opera as Gibson, clad in a wedding outfit. On this occasion, trial by jury, she was suing him for not marrying her. And she professed to the court, I love him with fervour unceasing. I worship and madly adore. My blind adoration is ever increasing, and so on. And what did Ed reply with great resolve? Be firm, my pecker. Pecker means courage. Barely a year later, ladies and gentlemen, they were back again on stage. This time in Merry England. And guess who was the dashing Sir Walter Raleigh, and guess who was his May Queen? Of course, Merry England is not a very well-known opera. It's not written by Gilbert and Sullivan. But there is one song in it which Raleigh sings, Dan Cupid hath a garden where women are the flowers. And this is what Edwin, on this occasion, sang of his May Queen. But I will wait till I may pluck my dainty English rose. God grant that I, before I die, may wear one on my heart. And then, ladies and gentlemen, in 1988 came the most memorable of all productions, a production directed by myself, of The Yeoman of the Guard. Linda, as Elsie, the strolling singer, was in love with Ed, the gallant Colonel Fairfax, described as the bravest, the handsomest, and the best young man in England. A role, ladies and gentlemen, he played without the aid of makeup, with very skillful use of lighting, and another toupee wig. But this time they almost got married on stage, although he'd spent most of the show pretending he was somebody else. There will almost certainly be many more in which they will appear as lovers on stage. Indeed, if the present direction of the Brussels Light Opera Company is anything to go by, they'll be appearing on stage making love before long. But at least, and at last, we can take some comfort in the fact that in the meantime, they have been joined together in holy wedlock. And for this happy state of affairs, ladies and gentlemen, I take an awful lot of the credit. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I have been an old friend of both the family of the groom and of the bride. I have been their former landlord, and of course I founded the Brussels Gilbert and Sullivan Society. So before handing over to the best man, Philip, I would like to end my sermon, sorry, Minister, as I started, with a quotation from the Grand Duke. At the end of the Grand Duke, of course, Ludwig and Lisa have duly become married. And this is the final chorus from that show, which I have slightly adapted, but only very slightly adapted, for this occasion. Happy couple, lightly treading, Scottish church, it was quite brimful. You have had a pretty wedding, as of course is only rightful. Though the bride be fair or frightful, this has been a day delightful.